I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to panic. I want you to panic.
As a teacher, I'm really worried about the effect that climate alarmists are having on the mental health of the kids I teach. These are people who are telling kids the world is going to end in 12 years and there's no point in going to school. We're seeing anxiety, depression, even thoughts of suicide. They're on the rise and it's got to stop. This is bullying. It's child abuse. All this nonsense about the climate killing things and ending the world is exactly that. Nonsense. It's rubbish. This is the first of a series of short videos to help kids see that it's actually not a problem they need to worry about. The world is going to be here and be perfectly livable for their whole lives and the lives of their children and their grandchildren. If you, or anyone you know, is worrying about climate change, and if you want to help them, show them these videos. Please, please, please. The most important thing to know now is this. Ignore Greta.
I want you to panic.
Don't panic.
Our house is on fire.
The house is not on fire. You're being used by adults in a cruel and abusive way, and you need to have the facts to stand up to them and say, stop, leave us alone. It's the way to stop bullies, and these climate idiots are bullying you. So say, stop, leave us alone. The first thing kids need to be aware of is there's been climate alarmists warning of heat waves or ice ages or ozone holes or acid rain for the past 100 years. It's a scam. And in a later video I'll explain why they do it. But in every instance, these warnings of death and doom have been wrong. We didn't roast to death in the 30s. We didn't freeze to death in the 1970s. We didn't acid to death in the 1980s. Sea levels didn't wipe out the Maldives, the polar bears are at record numbers, and ice in the Arctic hasn't melted away. We're not going to die out, and we're not going to die out anytime soon. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. Climate scientists and reporters need to get clicks like anyone else, and nothing generates those clicks like "we're all gonna die" or "the cute ickle polar bears are going to die." Trust me, they're not. Since the last ice age ended 12,000 years ago, you know, the one the Pixar movies are based on, we've gone up and down in temperature several times, as you can see. We've had warm periods, warmer than we've got now in fact. Like when the Romans were around and when there was medieval kings and queens ruling Europe. We've also had cold periods that were called little ice ages. We've had quite a lot of them in fact, and the last one was only a couple of 100 years ago, where they skated on rivers in Europe and Charles Dickens wrote snowy books like A Christmas Carol. The most important thing to know in this first video is that CO2 has had nothing to do with those cold and warm periods through history. CO2 levels have hardly changed, for example, in the last 2,000 years, even though it's been much hotter and much colder than it is right now. That's because CO2 is fairly insignificant when it comes to raising temperature. In fact, thousands of scientists think it was more likely due to the sun and changes in how the Earth orbits and tilts towards it, and the activity of the solar flares and explosions and lots of other forcings. It's kind of obvious to most people when you ask them to stop and think for a second. But is it more likely that the Earth warms up and gets colder due to slight changes in a gas that is 0.03% of the air we breathe? Or is it more likely that it warms up and gets colder due to the changes in the humongous nuclear explosions on that fireball we go around that's so big that 1,300,000 Earths could fit inside of it? I'll give you a hint. It's the massive nuclear fireball that makes it warmer or colder on our little insignificant rock. In fact, there have been times when CO2 levels have been nearly 10 times higher than they are now. And in those times, there was actually an ice age. And carbon dioxide isn't even the most important gas for warming Earth anyway. That's water vapour. But we'll look at all this in a later video. It's getting a bit complicated. Let's just focus on the take-home message from this first video, okay? Ignore Greta. She's been told a lie. And yes, she's got some issues which she can't help that means she's not able to think critically about it. It's not her fault, but it is the fault of the news and the other adults who should know better. The world climate changes all the time. It always has. It always will. And it's got nothing to do with what humans are doing. So please, please, please don't panic. Do not get anxious or depressed about it. And certainly don't worry that it's going to affect your future. It isn't. It won't. If you do want to do something to help, you can share this video and the rest of this series with your friends and let them know that they can focus on being kids, play games, go to school, be nice to each other, Love your parents, love your families, learn to think critically. Get out there and protect nature and clear up your local environments. Get rid of litter and plastic and try to reuse and recycle as much as possible. These are things that will benefit our communities and are going to make a difference. Environment is important and it is being affected by humans. We damage rivers and seas. We overuse resources. But it's not in danger from climate change. And the sooner we stop scaring kids into skipping school and start teaching kids to clean up their local communities, the better life will be for everyone, everywhere, including those poor kids. You're being lied to, guys, by people who are making billions of dollars from making you, and more gullible adults, scared, anxious and angry. So tell the child abusers it's time to stop. Leave us alone now.